Okay guys, so in this tutorial I will talk about the brushes that are available in Blender. So let's start. So this is the default brush. It is called draw brush, and basically it draws the geometry on our model, and it looks like a sphere that you are drawing on your mesh. So it is quite round, and you can draw your mesh you can draw the mesh, you can draw the geometry on your mesh, and you can also delete the geometry. So this is very useful brush. So yeah, if you want to make eyes or even torso of the female, yeah, you can see this here. So let's move to another brush. This brush is called clay brush, and it basically adds another layer of geometry. So it will not like draw anything on, it will not add the geometry on your, it's hard to say, it will basically add one more layer on your mesh, so it will make it bigger. So as you can see, if I sculpt on each side, you can see that the sphere gets bigger, but you can't actually, I don't know, draw the eyes with this because it's very hard. You have to use the different brush, because this brush will basically only add another layer to your model. So the reverse is, yeah, basically deleting the layer that it added to your brush, to your model. So yeah, this is also useful sometimes, but I don't use it. I use the different brushes for this. Yeah, so you can add and delete the layers of clay. Let's move to next one, which is, I think, the most useful one. It is called clay strips, and you can see the effect it does to our model. Let me show you what it does. So basically it works like almost the same with like draw brush, but it is significantly different, because as you can see, this adds a stroke, but the stroke looks a lot better, and it is quite flat in the middle part. And if you have draw brush, you can see that this is quite like circular shape. And the clay strips brush you use mostly to define the muscles. So if you are like sculpting the human body parts, this brush is very useful if you want to lay down the muscles of someone. So yeah, it looks very nice, and it does what it does, guys. And you can do the reverse by clicking Control. It will delete the geometry from your model. So yeah, as you can see, it is quite flat on the middle, but it adds some indents on the sides. So this is also a very useful brush, and I will go in details later. So layer, guys, this brush is like no one basically uses it, I think, but this brush works like, the purpose of it is almost the same like clay brush, but here it will add a layer, but this layer will look something like a wall. So it will pop the places that you draw on, and it will make the picks in that places. So you can basically start drawing from here. So this is useful, for example, if you are you have your character, for example, and for example you have a dog and you want to make his ear, so you basically add this brush like this, you draw like this, and it will add another layer, so this will be the dog's ear, for example, and then you can start sculpting on it. And it also has the negative effect, so yeah, as you can see, it can make the holes. Maybe the eye is useful for this. Yeah, if you want to make your eye socket, just use control version of it. Inflate brush, as you can see, it inflates the part that we are drawing on. So if I want this to make, for example, you have a nose, let me quickly make a nose. Okay, and don't worry guys about this, I will explain everything later. And if you have this inflate brush and you want your nose to be more bigger or more like sphere, you can basically draw with the inflate brush and it will inflate like a balloon your mesh, and it will make it more spherish. Yeah, so again, you can use this brush to many stuff. For example, yeah, like the previous brush, you can make the torso of the women, or you can make the hole for the eye, but this is not used for that, but you can do it. Or maybe you want to add the meat on your cheeks, so you can draw here, so it will add, yeah, some meat on your cheek. Or you want it to have very nice roundish cute cheeks, you just draw with inflate brush. Okay, so this is inflate brush. Let's move on to the next one. So Blob. Basically Blob is very similar to inflate brush, but the difference is that it will make a blob. It will not inflate the actual geometry that you have, it will only make the blob. So if you have again this nose, let me do the nose again, for example. You have this nose, the inflate brush inflates it and makes everything bigger, but the blob, it will not make it. It will basically it will try to use the geometry to add a sphere on it. So it is useful in some cases, and you can do the opposite by holding the control. So this is very nice. Brush also, let me delete everything. Okay, a crease brush is another, like, basically almost most used brush in Blender. Basically it makes creases, so, or slices. So if you want to make a smile, for example, you can cut down, you can like sculpt here, and you can see that he now has a smile. Or someone cut him on his face, for example, someone cut him in his eyes, and you can see that someone cut his eyes. Or you can do a lot of stuff. So if you are old, for example, and you have this on your forehead because you are old, or something, you can use the crease brush for it. So crease brush is very nice for making, yeah, those slices. And you can do the opposite, and it will make everything go outwards. So opposite of the slice. It's actually hard to explain. Okay, so next brush called smooth brush it is very useful. So as you can see here, you have a peak, and you can see that the angle between this face and this face is quite big, and we don't want that. So we can smooth this out by using the smooth brush, and now you can see that this looks again very smooth. And this is the only brush, I think, that that doesn't have an opposite version of it, because yeah, I don't know what would it be. And you can smooth everything out by using this brush, and actually the shortcut for it is holding the shift. So if you're, for example, you're on draw brush and you're drawing, for example, this, and you can see that, yeah, this is quite high peaks and it's not very smooth, you can basically hold the shift button and start drawing, and this will basically automatically change to smooth brush, and it will smooth your geometry, so you don't have to go to smooth brush each time. And actually, if you hover on each brush, you can change you can see the shortcut of it. So for example, here I have clay strip, so I have number 3, so I can use the shortcut to navigate around 3D viewport faster. So each brush has its own shortcut. So draw brush has X, for example, and clay strip I have it on 3 because I changed it, but if you hover on your icon, you will see the shortcut. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one, which is flatten. So for example, let's change to flatten. You are making the ground, and you want your ground to be very flat, so you just, yeah, sculpt it, and you can see that it's very flat now. Yeah, or you want your nose to be flatter, so you can make it more flat, and it will not look so round, and it is flat right now. And there is actually a opposite of it, and I don't know what it does, because it's very weird. It works very weird, the opposite of flatten brush, but nobody use it. Nobody used the opposite of flatten, which is contrast. So let's move to the fill brush. Fill brush will basically fill the hole areas that you have. So let me try to recreate the scene that we can use. Okay, so here you have the hole between this area and this, and if you use the fill brush and you start drawing, you can see that it fills our mesh. And it also has the opposite version, which is deepen, and this will basically deepen the areas that we have. So for example, here you can see that I have some deep area, and I can make it more deep if I use the deepen brush. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one, which is scrape brush. And scrape brush is working almost the same like the flatten. It also flattens the mesh, and I really don't know why there's two brushes like this. I don't know what the differences are. I think I know a bit what the differences are. I know that the scrape brush is better if you are drawing, you are sculpting the human, because it I don't know, it flattens everything better for me, at least. And yeah, they basically they have the same purpose. They have the same ability. So you can also make the picks by holding the control, but it doesn't work very well right now. Okay, so let's move on to the next brush, which is pinch brush. And for example, you want very hard hard edge, and you can see that here they are not so hard because I smoothed them. So we can use the pinch brush to pinch them together. So if you draw it here, you can see that the vertices, they are coming closer to each other because this pinch brush like connects each vertices closer to each other. So you can see here you have very hard line, and it's very useful when you're doing the hard surface models, sculpts. For example, if you're sculpting the car or some weapon, it's very useful. Or if you're doing stylized stuff. As you can see here, I very quickly made something very hard line by using the pinch brush, and yeah, it looks, I don't know, interesting. And you can do the opposite by control. It will move the vertices far away from each other. Yeah, so grab brush is another useful brush, and we use it basically to grab our mesh and move it around. So for example, if I have the hat and I see that my face is not correctly shaped, so it is, I don't know, too thick, too big, so you can use the grab brush to grab the geometry and move it down, for example. Or here I can basically shape the basic shape of the head. So something like this will be more like the head shape, and you can use the grab brush for it. Snake hook is actually almost the same, but it basically pull out the mesh in the direction that we are moving it. So if I want my head to have horns, I can pull out the geometry, and you can see that he has basic horns right now. And this brush we use it mostly with Top, which I will explain later. So let's move on to the thumb. And thumb brush is basically, if you were in the kindergarten and you play with the plasticine, I don't know how to say it, but it's basically try to recreate the effect if you use your thumb to make something closer to each other. So for example, here if I move it up, you can see that I use my thumb to move it up closer to each other, and this is useful sometimes. I actually didn't use it, I never used it before, so and I will not use it, I think, because there's a lot of better brushes to use. But this is useful if you, I don't know, if you want to make your character smile, so you can use the thumb brush on the edges of his smile and move them up so he will smile. Nudge brush is basically doing the rotation on your mesh. So if, for example, I want my head to be rotated, I don't know why, you can use the nudge brush and it will rotate the geometry into the twister like shape, like, oh yeah, like this. It will basically rotate your mesh, rotate the geometry. Yeah, it will create something weird. And let's move on to the last one, which is rotate. And this actually rotates the whole mesh. It will not create the twister like shape, but for example, if I have this horn that I was talking about, yeah, like this, and I want this to be more rotated, I can use the rotate tool, and you can see that I can rotate it. And this tool is, I wish it would work better, because sometimes I really need to rotate something, but this works not that good, because I don't know why, but basically it doesn't work that great. It's useful sometimes if you want to rotate it very slightly, but if you want to rotate something like more, it is very hard to do it. And the point that you are pressing is the pivot point of the rotation. Yeah. So the mask brush is basically, as the name of it says, is basically the mask for your mesh. So for example, here, if I'm sculpting something and I don't want this part to be affected, so I can mask it. And now if I change to other brush, I can sculpt here, but I cannot sculpt on the mesh, on the mask that I sculpted before. So this is also useful if you, for example, want to protect the eye that you sculpted before and you don't want nothing to change it. You just mask the eye and you can work around the eyes. And to delete whole mask, you just have to go to mask brush and click Alt M to delete the mask. And if you, for example, want to invert the mask, you can click Ctrl I. It will invert the mask. So let's click Alt M to delete everything. And this brush is actually, I think, new. And let's see if it has some effect. This brush is basically new, guys, and I don't use it, but basically I think this brush will make your model more simple. So if you have a lot of vertices, it will make it to have less vertices. So okay guys, so this brush it works the best with if you have a lot of vertices, so I will show you it later. And now let's move on to the next part, which is box height. And basically box height is, if you have it on, you can select the part that you want to hide of your mesh, so you will not sculpt on it, because for example, if you're sculpting the side of your torso and your hand is getting in the way, you can just hide it and you don't have to worry about it. And to unhide, you have to click Alt H, and box mask is basically masking the area that you select. And let's see the box height. So if you want to sculpt specifically one part, for example the eyes, you can click Alt B and you can mask the area that you want to sculpt. And basically the area that you mask will be only visible, and everything will not be visible. So for example, you can now sculpt the eye without worrying about other parts. Yeah. And if you want to go out, just click Alt B. So guys, maybe this will be it for the introduction. And I will see you guys in the next part, which I will show you the line topo and the basic demo. So see you guys in the next one.